Hey, I'm Nicole. Welcome back to my channel. In my last video, I shared with you that something I do for extra income is doing repairs and alterations. On the repair side, it's a lot of knitwear repair work. I thought I would take you along on a job I'm doing today. Today, I'm going to be repairing a hole in this knitted puffer jacket. We've got a pretty big hole here in the sleeve. This job is a little bit complicated for a couple of reasons. For one thing, it is a piece of knitwear that is a puffer jacket. So you can see here that the knit is actually stitched onto this quilted backing. So I can't actually get into the reverse of this very easily. Secondly, it's not going to be as easy for me to harvest yarn from the garment to do the repair. I am going to be able to do that, but it's going to be a lot more involved than is usually the case with jumpers and other type of knitwear. The final thing is it's a cable knit, which is a stitch pattern I've not repaired this extensively before. I've done a few repairs on cable knits, but fortunately for me, they weren't actually at the point where I had to cross over the knitting. This is the first time I'm actually going to have to do a proper invisible repair on a cable knit stitch pattern. It's going to be a bit of a challenge, but I thought let's just get on with it. How hard can it be? Now, this is a particularly advanced repair. There's no way I would have been able to tackle something like this in the early stages of my learning how to do knitwear repair. If you would like to learn these techniques, or you'd like to understand the fundamentals behind the techniques that I'm using, you may want to check out an online course that I filmed teaching all of these techniques. I will link it in the description below. Go and have a look and you'll get up to speed on the basics, and what I'm doing on this repair will make a lot more sense. So let's get into it. The first thing I need to do is harvest some yarn in order to get a matching color to do the repair. To do that, I am going into the lining. I'm going to be unpicking the lining as far as I need to, and we are going to harvest some yarn from the seam allowance just here, and then we will need to secure all of that edge so that it doesn't unravel there inside the seam. So let's just start by unpicking a bit more of the lining. We don't need to go too far in, just enough that we can get in and turn things inside out. And now let's have a look and see what we can harvest from this edge. From what I can see, we've got some kind of bind off on this edge here. So we should be able to harvest the yarn that is used for the bind off. I'm just using my needle to check that I'm not going to be cutting any yarn that's going to start unraveling any stitches. I'm going to make the cut just here. And I'm just going to start unraveling that bind off. Bind off is essentially a sort of chain stitch. So you can see that once I've got that going, I can just pull and it will just start to unravel on its own. But obviously I need to catch all of these live loops here along this edge of the seam allowance. Otherwise, all of that knitting could start to unravel inside. And although we have a line of stitching here that was made on a sewing machine that attaches the knitting to the actual puffer jacket, I think the safest thing would be to go in and just replace all of this chain stitching. It doesn't really matter what color we use because that's going to be enclosed back into the lining. But I have got this yarn, which is close enough match. We might as well use it. I've got an array of mini latch hooks like this in small sizes for my knitwear repairs. I'm just going to choose one that is a good size for what I'm doing here. Now, what I like to do whenever I'm unraveling some knitting, I don't like to unravel the whole lot and then come back and secure things. I like to unravel, secure, so that I never have too many live loops just exposed there at once. Let's now start our replacement bind off to secure the loops inside of here. I'm going to start off by just threading a needle, a tapestry needle, with the yarn that I'm using to hold all of those loops back in place. I'm just going to start by securing a couple of stitches just into those first two live loops. Once I'm confident that that's anchored, I'm going to start doing a little chain stitch using this small latch hook. I'm just going to get the latch hook into the first live loop along. I'm going to pop my mending yarn into the latch, pull it through that first live loop. So I've got a little loop now on the latch. And now I'm going to put the latch through the next live loop. Let me just tighten that a bit. I'm just going to catch the mending yarn inside the latch and bring it through. And then I'm just going to carry on doing that. I'm just going to hold the latch open like this because it's a little bit tricky kind of maneuvering that. Get the latch hook into the third live loop. Again, tighten that a little bit. Put the mending yarn into the latch and then pull through. So we're just going to keep doing this all the way along until we get to the next bit that we need to unravel. Now I have caught all of the loops up until the point where I had stopped unraveling before. So now I can just go ahead and unravel another section. And again, I'm just going to carry on my chain stitching now until I get to the next part. Now I'm up to the place where I have got the lining open. So to get to the rest of it, I'm just going to get inside like that. Now I can only get as far as here because we've got a seam here and the knitting here is actually seamed as well. So we'll only be able to harvest as far as here on this particular stretch. But we'll see if that's enough. If it's not enough for the repair, then we'll have to go into another section of the lining and do this process again. But we'll see how far we get with this. I've just got to the very end now, so I'm just going to trim away that tail of yarn. We're going to use this to do the repair. And now I'm just going to swap out to my tapestry needle. I'm going to make sure not to lose that last loop here in the chain stitch of the mending yarn. Just going to get the tail of that mending yarn into my needle. I'm going to pass that needle through the loop just to knot off that chain stitch and make sure it doesn't start unraveling. I'm just going to secure this yarn tail, just a few little stitches here. So now that yarn is all sealed up, I know that's not going to unravel. So now we can go ahead and stitch that lining back up. I'm just going to use a normal sewing thread and I'm just going to slip stitch the lining back closed. With that done, let's go ahead and prep the mending yarn for our repair. What I'm doing now is smoothing out all these kinks here in the harvested yarn. I have got my iron here on my steam setting. I've got it on my tailor's ham. I'm just going to start off with a very, very light bit of steam on the end. So I'm not ironing it, I'm just very, very gently passing the iron over. I've got the iron here at a bit of an angle, as you can see, and I'm just gently pulling the yarn under the iron so that the steam can release some of the kinks that are in the yarn. And you can see what a difference that's made there. I've got my harvested yarn prepped, but before I get to the repair, I just need to do a little bit of investigative work to work out the exact stitch pattern that was used on this knitted panel so that I can replicate it. What we've got is 5 columns of knit stitches followed by 1 purl stitch. We've got then a cable 7 twist front, meaning we've got 7 stitches here on the cable, and then we've got the repeat there, 1 purl followed by 5 knit stitches. So I just want to work out what the repeat is here. I'm going to put a pin at the start of where the twist happens on the cable, and if I put a pin on the corresponding stitch up here, I'll be able to count how many rows there are in the repeat. So now let's count how many rows we've got on each repeat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So we've got 15 stitches in each repeat. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and just tidy up this hole and get it ready for repair. I'm going to put this piece of sponge inside the sleeve right underneath the repaired area, and that is what is going to hold and anchor the pins that I'm going to use. I'm going to be using these tailoring mending pins to keep the loops anchored as I work. I'm going to start by just doing a little bit of tidying up here around the hole. We've got a few little broken strands of yarn around the place, so I'm just going to start unraveling that just so I can get back to my first row of loops that is not broken or compromised. This yarn needs to be put back into that loop, so I'm just going to take my latch hook and bring that loop back into the one below. Again, if you're interested in learning any of these techniques in detail, please check out my Knitwear Repair Basics course. It teaches you all of these basic fundamentals in detail in step-by-step tutorials, and it'll help a lot of this to make a lot more sense. Now, I'm going to cut away this whole section here. I think that's just going to end up causing more confusion than help. Up here, we might be able to salvage some of this. We've got a live row intact there, so let's just go ahead and pin these in place. We will come back to these later on. Similarly here on the top, let's just take out any yarns that are broken up here so that we have a nice live row to work with. And let's just move those to the back as well. So let's now work out how many rows we need to get to before we need to do our cable twist. I just use this bottom row as the start of my row count. So we need to go 15 stitches before we get to the twist. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So we need to do 4 more rows up from here, and then we need to perform the twist. So let's go ahead and start doing our duplicate stitching, and we're going to go 4 rows up. Let's just go in through here. We are just going to anchor the repair first by doing a set of duplicate stitches here as we go across this row. I'm going to pop a pin here in the starting point just so I can keep track of where that first row is. I'm just going to pop a pin there as well, just because we haven't quite got a loop on top to anchor to, so this will just help us to keep that stitch in place. Now we need to do 1 purl stitch. Because we haven't got any loops on the top to anchor that, we're going to put our pin there as well. And then we're going to go 7 knit stitches across. I'm just here at the last stitch on this first row. So now we are getting ready to go up to the row above. I'm just going to take my needle just up and across. So we're just going to go exactly in the same fashion. I'm going to go 3 knit stitches, 1 purl stitch, 7 knit stitches, 1 purl stitch, 2 or 3 knit stitches, and then again I'm going to do the same thing and come back up the next side of that row. So let me go ahead and do that until we build up 4 rows, and then we will do the cable twist. Now we are at the row where we need to do the cable twist. Now when you are actually knitting a cable twist, the process is that these 4 stitches, which would be on the right hand needle, what you do is slip these 4 stitches onto a cable needle, bring them out to the front, and then knit these 3 stitches next. So what we have to do is replicate that. I am going to just move these 3 stitches out of the way for now. I've now got those 4 stitches out of the way, so now I am going to move these 3 across to try and make sure not to lose that, because now the yarn is really stretching. And I'm just using the latch hook here to help. It's much easier when you actually have them on a knitting needle, but obviously you've just got them held on here with these pins. Okay, so we've got those 3 stitches moved across. So now we are going to knit those 3. What I might do to help anchor those stitches is now just pin the row below. Now this 4th stitch, this one is the middle stitch in the cable. So this one goes up here next to this one. And this one we have to purl for some reason. So we're going to go into it like that. Now we want to get these 3 stitches onto this side, but bearing in mind I had kind of twisted them to the front, I now need to untwist them, which I think I will try and do one by one. So I need to get the pin back through there and onto there. Now something wasn't looking right here, and I think what I've done is instead of moving those 3 needles across like that, I moved this one there, that one there, that one there. So it's sort of twisted it a bit. Let me just get them into the right position and carry on knitting. Really fiddly this bit, and I'm sorry it's really hard to see on camera. But we just need to get from back to front on this one so that we can knit it. Okay, getting to the last of the tricky bit. Okay, we are over the trickiest bit of it. We are now going to go back over this way and use the same stitch formation as before. What I also need to do now is work out how many rows we need to do to get back to attaching at the top here. So I will do a count on that in a second. So let's work out how many more rows we need to do before we can join the live knitting here with the top of here. So this is the first stitch before the twist. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we need to do 3 rows in order to get to our 15 stitch repeat. So let's go ahead and do 3 more rows of knitting and then we can join to the top. Okay, we are on the home straight. I did run out of yarn, so I had to harvest another set. But we are now going to go across this last row and we are going to now close this whole hole. So I'm just going to go into this last row. Now we are at the purl column. So let's do a purl stitch on this one. I have got to the end now, so I just want to weave in these ends. Normally I would do that on the wrong side, but we obviously cannot get to the wrong side now. So I'm just going to wind the yarn up one of these columns of knit stitches. I'm going to bring it to the other side of that knit stitch, and then I'm going to wind it coming back the other way. And then I'm just going to give myself a bit of a tail there on the yarn and trim it away. And there you have it. There is our Cable 7 front invisible knitwear repair. We are finished with our repair. Where is it? There it is. The yarn I used to do the repair, which I did harvest from the garment, is just a tiny shade darker than the outside, but that will lighten up over time. You just have to remember that the yarn that we harvested was inside a seam allowance, so it wasn't exposed to the elements as much as the outside of the jacket has so far. But that was a first for me, and I'm quite pleased with how it came out. I hope the customer is going to be pleased as well. And that is your Cable 7 front invisible knitwear repair. If you'd like to learn more about getting started doing professional invisible knitwear repairs, make sure you check out my invisible knitwear repair basic and advanced online courses. I break down each of the stages in detailed step-by-step tutorials, making it super easy for you to mend your own knitwear invisibly and even start getting paid to do it for others. I hope you found this video useful. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.